Welcome back to another episode of the Phoenix Founders Podcast. I'm here with Naru from Stax AI, high-growth AI-driven software company here in the Metro Phoenix area. Naru, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Greg. It's great to be involved.
Yeah. Now, you are a one-name person. You mentioned you only go by one name. So you're like Madonna or like Snoop or something like that, right?
Well, don't let my parents hear that. My name is Narendran Muralidharan, but people call me Naru. If you want to get into it, my college, I went to college here in Arizona, in Prescott, Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University. And I had my college roommates over there, and I was very close with one of them. He's actually my co-founder, the engineering services company I started before this. He said Narendran fine. There was nothing wrong with it.
Most of us don't.
Most people don't, but I just wanted to mess with him. So I kept telling him he was doing it wrong. And so about 6 months in, he just let it out. It's okay. I'm not going to call you. Not going to attempt to call you that anymore. Your name is Naru. That's what I'm going to call you.
Stuck.
And it's stuck.
I like it. Well, speaking of the name and also knowing a little bit about where you were born, I want to hear about your upbringing. I'm always curious about two things. One, how your upbringing affected your entrepreneurial journey, and then two, are there any indications early in your upbringing, in your formative years, that you would eventually start a software company? So I'm always curious about that narrative. But where were you born, and what was your arc toward entrepreneurship in the early days?
Yeah, so I was born in India, in a very far south. It's a state called Kerala. There's not a lot of people from there around here. But when I was very young, we left India. We went to China. My family was moving around a lot. We lived there for a little bit, and we went to Canada, back to India, moved around quite a bit. So I actually was not in a single place for longer than, I think, like a few years or so at a time. And I think that did play a fairly major role. I had to learn to be a lot more independent. I had to learn to make new friends as we were going to places. But I also noticed, just now that when you asked about this, even when I was really young, I always wanted to build things myself, lead things. And whether it was like running a magazine in school or, second and third grade, like building igloos, and I wanted to be the person who was running that at that point.
Where did that come from? Was there anything that you talked about around the dinner table with your family, or was there something you observed in your parents' work experience that made you want to lead out and build something?
Well, so my dad was a project manager for Procter & Gamble. He actually led the construction of a lot of their manufacturing plants around the world. And from a very young age, he actually took me to those, and
cool.
I saw how he was working with people. And every kid, looks up to their dad, right? And I loved what he was doing and the impact that it actually made, and also saw how he was able to command, not really as much get a lot of people to do something, but how you really get people motivated for one cause.
Build a movement to get something done.
Exactly.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. That's definitely a founder attribute. I'm always interested in founder attributes. That's definitely one for successful founders.
And then a little later, I probably watched, Social Network, Jobs, Silicon Valley way too many times, and I think that has an impact on everyone.
For sure. One other question, a couple other questions about this. The immigrant. I'm always interested in the immigrant story. I've sort of only semi-jokingly said this, but if I could figure out how to build a fund solely of immigrant founders, I probably would. I think there tends to be a special work ethic, a special resilience on that. And moving around, you kind of have two aspects of that. You moved around a lot. Yeah. How did that experience affect your kind of later on company building experience? You had to make a lot of new friends, for example, meet new people all the time. If you're living in China, and then you move to Canada, you're moving back, that's a lot of movement for a kid.
It is, and I think mostly it made me very independent to an extent where I have to be, and very scrappy as well to figure out how to get people, not just how to make friends, but you have to get a little creative. So we were moving around a lot, and that became a little too much. And for the last few years, like around high school, we decided I should probably go to a boarding school instead so that we could at least finish off that what my parents consider a very crucial part of education. And when I did that, it was some of the things that I ended up doing to just get people to like me and hang out more was actually In a way, it's kind of a business. We had something like a commissary where you can go buy certain things. You get an allowance almost every week for it. And I started figuring out ways to get people to pay me in that. And even things like programming games on their calculators. Like I'm sure a lot of people, their TI-84 calculators, you were doing that. And figuring out ways to not necessarily do their homework for them, but something kind of like that and get some more through it.
You know what's so fascinating to me? Enoch Ko, you might know Enoch. He started a company called Soraban here in town, really high growth company here that we were fortunate to be investors in. He had this exact same story. So in fact, I'll say it's like pretty similar. He was born in Korea. He moved, I think, to India. His parents were missionaries. Came to the U.S. when he was in junior high, and he had a hard time communicating, and he started actually building programming on calculators. Like he literally had that exact same story. So it's super fascinating. I'll have to get you guys together and let you compare.
Well, it seemed like such an easy way where you can also you don't have to reprogram something on every calculator. Once you have it, you can share it with everyone else, and that was exciting because it's scalability to an extent. It's not your time you're selling anymore. Once you build something, if people like it, everyone else wants it, and it was like 50 or 100 rupees. It's like less than $1 of what it's worth right now. But that was enough to get some more candy or chips or things like that with the commissary money there. Yeah.
Now, you were in boarding school then, and you used the word rupees, so presumably that was in India.
It was, yes.
Okay. And then came here for college?
I did, yeah. Undergrad.
You mentioned Prescott. So did you go to Embry-Riddle?
Yes.
Why'd you choose Embry-Riddle?
So there were many reasons. I was looking for...
You want to be a pilot? Because they have a big aviation school, right?
They do. So ever since I could remember, I've loved airplanes. I've loved aviation. And I actually wanted to be an aerospace engineer. I want to be a pilot, but more just on the side, private license. But I love building, and that's a lot of the things that I did very early on as well, develop build model aircraft and things like that. I went to Embry-Riddle because I was looking for a place that's also very hands-on. I did a lot of software development for an open source flight simulator. I think I started when I was 12 or 13. But I did some of that at a young age, and I found out about a few people who went there who loved it. I also looked at some other places like TU Delft, the Emirates Academy, and some of the, like MIT and Caltech and some places too. But this one was very interesting because out of all the people that I talked to, they don't have a graduate program in Prescott. They have an undergraduate program, but they have graduate level labs and resources, which means the students, you're going in there as a freshman and you get to go in these labs, experiment with the wind tunnels and learn a lot more. And people just loved that experience.
Fascinating. Love it. Tell me about college and post-college. Like, did you after, like, you finished your degree there, and then did you have any side projects when you were there, like there were entrepreneurial projects there?
Well, I started my first business while I was in college. Maybe we shouldn't even call it a business. It was a lesson more than anything else.
I've had some of those.
It was actually with we had 6 of us in a suite, like in our dorms. And 5 of the 6 of us just came together and said, let's try to build something. We didn't even know what it was, but actually I just really wanted to, I don't know if it's more like, I don't know if I'd ever, in the long run, find a way to work for someone. It might just be my personality. It's, I know a lot of founders feel that way too. So we just wanted to try to build something ourselves. It was we tried to build this random app at the time, and you probably heard of Flappy Bird. It was something very similar. Yeah. We were just figuring out what to do. Huge lesson, learned a lot. One of the big things that I learned is that myself and one other person, we're the only ones actually doing anything. Everyone else was just in there and wanted to say that they were part of it, but more just supporting us. That didn't work out. We tried something else right after, but in that process, like while I was in college, I was also doing a lot of undergraduate research work. And one of those things that I was working on picked up quite a bit, and the university liked what I was doing. The professors I was working with, they saw a lot of value there. And they also talked to the Johnson Space Center in Houston, and they actually thought that was very interesting too. So They extended that a little bit, said, okay, they don't officially have a master's program, but they want me to complete my research. So they'll do it like an add-on year. They'll cover all the payments. I don't have to pay anything for it. And I'll also get a master's at the end of it. So even before my undergraduate was done, I did that. While I was doing that, we started another company. But this other friend, he was the only other person who was doing anything here. He had to leave Arizona for, his family had some health issues, so he had to go back to Oregon. So someone else that I met as part of this undergraduate research, we started a business building battery management systems for drones.
Interesting.
So again, that's a lot more on the aerospace side. We were excited, about what we could do in the industry. And another major lesson, like huge lesson, but at this point we were getting actual customers. We went to conferences. They were very excited about it. At that time, some electric aircraft that were able to fly for about 45 minutes on battery power with the same weight of batteries, we were able to take that up to 3 hours. So that was a huge jump there. And there's one company specifically that was also very close to the area. They were started by Embry-Riddle alums as well. They had a lot of drones they were selling to Edwards Air Force Base. So we got into a bit more volume doing that. Now, through this, we learned a lot of lessons. We were not running this like a business should have been running. We were still in school. And there were some things where we tried to raise some money. We didn't know what we were doing. It was more of a private investor. It didn't work out well. And in the end, myself and my co-founder, who's also an immigrant, not a U.S. citizen, ended up, our position became very compromised with how the system was, how the company was set up. Yeah. And so he actually had to leave the country after. Oh, wow. I was still okay. It was part of my research. I was doing some stuff with my research and I could do something else from there. But we left that. But the people that we work with, the clients that we work with, they knew us. They worked with us. And so we actually set up another business, an engineering service company, and started solving some of their problems, not necessarily through the battery management system, but getting more creative ways so that we could help them out. And that actually transitioned into Aptus Engineering, which was our software development company, and then almost like a venture studio as well. Interesting.
Before we get into that, I want to get into that in a minute, but before we get into that, you mentioned the Flappy Bird, Flappy Bird 2.0 kind of thing that didn't work out with multiple founders. You also talked about the next experience with a co-founder. Do you have an opinion or a thesis on solo founder, two co-founders, three co-founders? Like, have those experiences informed your opinion about the value or the challenges with co-founders? I don't think there's a right answer. I'm just curious.
I don't think I actually have enough experience to answer that well. I've had pros and cons on all sides of it. I think at a certain point, you need to have the right people. I think team is everything. And I'm learning that right now, like quite a bit. Like if you have the right people, it makes a massive difference. If you don't have the right people, that could also be what destroys the company.
Yeah.
Now, for me personally, and I think this might be with some of the independence that I gained and learned at a very small scale, like if you're looking pre-seed, just barely startup, I actually like the pace I can move at when it's a solo founder, when it's just me, because there's not a lot of other things to actually worry about either. You're very focused. You don't have to, decision making is a lot easier too. But I think very quickly when you get to a point, you are going to need, they don't necessarily have to be co-founders, but I think you're going to need people in your team that are like co-founders.
Totally agree with that. Yeah, no, you want fast decision making. Early days, you want to ship early, ship often, but then you're going to need to build out high caliber team to really scale it up.
Yeah, I think there's a good saying on this I really like. Actually, one of our customers told me this recently. If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together.
I love that. Aptus. So you used the words software development / venture studio firm. Tell me about that.
So when we left the battery management services company, we set up Aptus Engineering. It was just a general engineering service company. We were doing mostly aerospace, electrical, product, hardware stuff. Pretty quickly, we got into, again, by accident, some software projects as well. It's mostly that most hardware projects will have some software component to it. And then that people talk, and if we solve problems pretty quickly and for a reasonable price, and someone else has a similar problem, they come to us with that. About a year and a half in, we were looking at this. We weren't planning on raising capital. We were cash flow positive. It was an agency, right? It's a very different kind of model. But someone that we were pretty close with, and we was one of our customers, they were actually interested in investing in us. And we looked at some of the numbers. This was the first time we actually took a step back and looked at the business as opposed to just being in it. And we realized that 80% of our customers by logo count were looking for hardware projects. 20% was software, where 95% of the actual revenue was coming on the software side.
Interesting. Yeah.
That was a no-brainer. We need to stop doing hardware work. And there's a saying, like I say this a lot to people, where when you have a hardware company and you're solving problems with design and development of hardware, if something goes wrong, you're losing weeks, sometimes months in lead time. You're losing money. And this is a massive delay, and time is everything.
Yeah.
With software, if something goes wrong, you know this really well. You just need some coffee and a good weekend, and everything's good again. So
the feedback cycles are way faster in software, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So
and also the risk profile because of that, because hardware is pretty capital intensive and software's not. Exactly.
And for us, especially, like, our revenue was actually coming from software development. Now, again, they were development services. It wasn't a product, but that's what a lot of that was coming from. Through that, we started working with some other startups, actually local startups here, and we loved what they were doing and wanted to be a bit more involved. They wanted us to be more involved too. And I guess it's not just here. There's one in Washington, one in Colorado as well. And so instead of just charging cash, we started figuring out if we can get some equity in the company at an early stage.
Smart.
And we experimented with the venture studio model at that point. And actually, Stax AI was originally created from Aptus, through that model, where we found a problem that we had people coming to us to try to solve. We figured it would actually make more sense for us to build a product as opposed to just do a custom development for them. And that's how we originally built that V1, of Stax AI.
Yeah. What do you think about the venture studio model? I have mixed thoughts on this model. Yeah. It usually requires, I've got several firsthand examples of this, but it usually requires some cap table cleanups later on, because future investors look at this and they think, hey, there's someone who owns a large chunk of the company that's not involved with the company. It's the venture studio. Yeah. For whatever reason, it doesn't get treated like an early investor. For some reason, it gets treated maybe because it's common stock typically. But do you have an opinion on the model? It feels like there's like pros and cons, but do you have an opinion about the venture studio model?
Oh, I have a lot of opinions on that. To summarize everything, it might be worth just starting with, or even just ending with, the venture studio that we started is not operational anymore.
Yeah.
So I think that answers on its own a lot of questions. But there are a lot of complexities. The cap table is one thing. I think that's actually one of the smaller issues.
Interesting.
Some of the bigger ones, I think, is when you are actually, and I saw this for myself, because I think aside from timing, the most important thing a startup needs is focus. And having that venture studio model and myself being involved in many of the other companies. And when I'm working with a company, I get obsessed. Like, that is what I focus on. That's what I want to do. And it's very tricky when you have multiple companies like that. So there was a point in time, Alt Exchange was a company that we worked through with our venture studio. I personally actually developed most of the systems while I was still at Inventives. And I remember working like through nights. I got really sick multiple times. And just kept working through it. That company actually just had an exit in November. So, but with that, now you have other businesses over there that you're supposed to be working with as well that suffer. There are other complexities where if you can't actually scale portions of what you're doing well with the teams, like, you're going to need people at any startup who are that closely involved and stick through the company and help take it to the next stage and then grow. With a model like a venture studio, you can't do that. You're now finding someone else to come take some portions of that over. There's also a conflict now, because a lot of what you're getting on the venture studio side is like credit for development services. And as a startup, you want to be as scrappy as possible and spend as little as possible. And so that becomes very just complex to deal with.
Yes. Yeah.
So actually, thanks to AZVC, I stepped down from the venture studio in 2023 to focus full-time on Stax AI. And honestly, from a focus standpoint and a direction for Stax, that was the best thing that could have happened.
We'll come back and talk more about the fundraising path, including from our friends at AZVC. Yeah. The one thing I want to just highlight for people listening here, you mentioned a few attributes that I think are really critical. You didn't use the word, but you described focus.
Yeah.
Like it's hard when you've got multiple things going on to really be focused. You did use the word obsessed and obsession. Like you have to be obsessed with the problem.
Yeah.
And then you also talked about continuity of team and having a team that can like learn and compound, and the studio model tends to swap people out. And so you lose some of that continuity, but it's, focus, obsession, and continuity, I think are really compounders in startups. Is that fair summary?
I 100% agree. Yeah. Yes.
Well, let's jump into Stax, Stax AI here. Why this company? Why this problem? And like, start with an overview of what Stax AI is.
Yeah. So Stax AI is at a very high level. Especially, I'm assuming most viewers wouldn't know much about the industry, but it's the operating system for retirement plan administrators. It is like a CRM on steroids that helps TPAs, who are the people who help administer retirement plans, like 401k plans, pension plans for businesses. It helps them handle compliance. It helps them manage their clients. It helps them make all the IRS filings as needed and so on. So that's what Stax does. There is a very windy road, like as to how we got to that point. Because as I said, we started Stax AI through Aptus Engineering. It was actually built out for healthcare. We were doing a lot of things in healthcare around AI diagnostic systems, but there's a few businesses we were working with, and we were talking to them, and one of the biggest issues they had was that they had faxes coming in, and people had to read those faxes, just get them into the right people's hands or attach it to the right patient EMR records and so on. That seemed like such an easy problem from a technology standpoint to solve, and so we just jumped on that immediately. We set up integrations with electronic faxes, used, at that point, it was like BERT, large, like smaller language models, to read the documents, classify them, and it trains, when people put documents in specific folders, it learns from that, and then it just classifies them and moves them there. That worked great for them. We started going to vet clinics, dental offices, and we had a few customers in places there.
This is for including things like insurance verification,
like
scheduling,
HICFA forms, like prescription orders, all sorts of things. Anything that comes in via an electronic fax, paper mail, they just scan it, and it reads it, does an OCR first, and then classifies it, extracts information needed, and gets it to the right people or attaches it to the right record. We launched this. So we came up with this idea in like end of September of 2019. We threw together an MVP and launched it in November of 2019 in healthcare. A couple months later, everyone we went to talk to, first of all, we weren't even let in to talk to them anymore. No one wanted to buy something like this that wasn't something that's absolutely necessary to keep their business alive. Mm-hmm. And so we were scrambling. We were trying to figure out what else can we do. Now, the good thing, what we thought was a good thing, is that the software on its own was not focused like to healthcare. It was a generic platform that's just reading documents, classifying it, and bringing it to people, the right people. So we talked to anyone else we thought needed document management. So legal firms, like law firms was one of them. We talked with actually the Maricopa County Recorder's Office for a lot of their recordings, and mortgage processing companies, and everyone liked it. And I think that was the worst thing that could have happened, because everyone liked it. Yeah. And so we got customers in so many different spaces, but they were initially all smaller deals, pilots to try to figure it out. And at that time, Aptus was building a lot of stuff. I was the only one actually at Aptus, and my wife now, she was helping with some of the sales and marketing function, and I was the only one who was actually doing anything related to Stax. And when you have customers in all these different spaces that have their own unique problems, that you need to really, I think to be successful as a software vendor, you, especially, if it's so ingrained into the business, you have to completely understand the business you're selling to. You need to understand your customer. You need to understand their pain points. And it's very difficult to do that across a lot of different spaces.
Yeah, I totally agree. A couple things I'll highlight for people listening that you pointed out there. One, you got a product into market like V1, your MVP, very early. So you could,
a couple weeks.
Yeah, so you could learn really early, and you learned within 60 days or so, hey, this is like okay for healthcare, but there's probably bigger and better opportunities outside. And then you found multiple use cases, but you pared that down to one. I can't tell you how many times I get pitched as an investor where people say, hey, good news, giant market, there's all these use cases. And I almost always lose interest when someone says they think it's a selling point, and I think it's a limiter, because exactly what you said, it's like an invitation to get distracted. Like, again, it's lack of focus on the ideal customer profile and the buyer persona inside that profile. So how did you pick third-party administrators out of that one use case? You've got all these other use cases. How'd you highlight that one point?
Well, so first of all, I made the mistake. I took the bait. We tried to go and sell to as many businesses as possible, but we were struggling. We weren't able to repeatably get sales in that generalized market. And TPA actually found us by accident. There was a local, they're based in Tucson. They have an office here, but a TPA found us, and they just saw what we were doing in healthcare, and it was a healthcare example that they saw, and they told us that they get these statements, tens of thousands of pages every month. They have to sort them, split them, file them, and pull information in and type them into a spreadsheet. So we started working with them. I didn't even know what a TPA was at the time, but they used the system for about a year to a year and a half, and we found out they were able to get the people who were doing this manually to doing much better things. They grew their business tremendously, acquired another firm, and took on their business. Mm-hmm. That we thought that was very interesting because their usage was also growing. And this is also just us still scrambling because we had, I think, 25, 30 customers across different spaces, and we were struggling to figure out how to make that scalable. Like, we did not have product market fit. That was the big thing. And so we decided to actually take a step back, look at these, talk to these customers, figure out, whether we should just verticalize, focus on one niche market. I got a random email from another business software company in the industry that I think I was signed up to just because we were trying to set up an integration for this one company. And there was a conference that was happening 3 days after I got the email. Went in, it was in New Orleans. I said, okay, I'll fly out there. I'll see what this industry is about. I went in, I didn't know you had to register for the conference. So I technically snuck into the conference, but saw that this is actually a really big problem and there's no one doing anything about this in the industry. The other thing that excited me was that this wasn't the only thing. This is a small enough market that most companies either don't even look at it or they look at it and then decide they don't go in. I think you and I spoke about this before. There are a lot of parallels to Campus Logic too, because I think it's about 5,000 to 7,000 total TPAs, around 2,500 that were worth working with, like big enough for things to make sense. There's some things about a market like that are very exciting because you're not going to face a lot of headwind getting into it. Right. And if you solve a problem that people see great value and ROI in, it'll sell itself.
I agree with that. Yeah.
So we asked for a few referrals. We had a lot of people we met at the conferences, and they signed up pretty quickly. And we decided to focus on the industry. Now, over another year, by the way, we did lose a few years. We learned a lot, so I wouldn't say lose, but from a growth trajectory, wasn't ideal for those first few years because we had to phase out all of our customers who are in other industries because we couldn't support them.
That's hard. I mean, the discipline of firing customers, like killing revenue, is hard.
And at that time, I mean, we were very small, like hundreds of thousands, I think, in ARR. But to get rid of almost all of that, to focus on this one industry that we saw, that we believe we had conviction that was the direction to go in, it was very hard. There are still a few customers in other industries, but we've never talked to them. Like they use it, and we actually reached out to one recently because we thought they were still being billed for something they didn't use because we haven't heard from them in a long time. Our VP of Finance reached out, and he said, "No, this is please do not, like, that will take us down like quite a bit. This is a big thing. Just we don't need anything. This is working." So we left that there, but we decided to make that pivot into the industry to fully focus because Another thing that came up was that there was a lot of fear in this industry because they've seen it before, that tech companies sometimes come in, they build something, they exit, and they don't stay in the long run. Yep. So they were actually worried, especially that we would be doing something similar. Now, this was also right around the time we raised our first round of capital. And we use that a little bit to our in positioning ourselves that, we're committed to the industry. We'll raise capital so we can double down on the industry. But the experiences that they've seen with the other businesses were also venture backed, or that's where it comes in. So
I think you hear that a lot in vertical software companies where customers are like, "Oh, you're going to be a venture backed company, and then at some point you're going to trade hands to someone who cares less about me than you do." And I think people experience that across industries. What year was this, by the way? What year did the company start again? And then when you mentioned the first round of capital? What was that? What year was that?
Yeah, so we spun it out of the engineering services company / venture studio in 2019. So November 2019. We weren't putting any full-time effort on it. We were still trying to run the other businesses as well. 2022 was when I went to that conference for the first time, and in early 23 and this was late 22, so early 23 was when we decided to fully pivot and phase out all the other customers. We were not looking for capital at the time. We were actually cash flow neutral, which is very surprising for a software company, but at this stage. But we were running an engineering services company before. All we were doing was billing annual subscriptions up front, and that was actually covering
the cash. Yeah.
So from an accrual basis, no, obviously we're net negative, but from a cash basis, that was keeping us afloat. We weren't actively looking for capital, but it got the interest of a private investor who was interested in jumping in. We started talking to them, working with them. We heard about AZVC. I've talked to Ben Brockwell before as well.
Ben's great.
And we talked to them a little bit, and we saw a lot more value working with a VC firm.
You can scale it up,
Scale it up a lot more. The operational experience was the biggest thing, and the network as well. So that's why we decided to do that. That was in September of 23.
So a couple of, before we go into that a little more, and then kind of where the company is today and what's next, a couple of things I'll just kind of highlight that I love what you said. It's a pro move to go to a conference when you're not registered. Like that's a pro move. It's free, and it's like conference hacking is a thing, right? You got the cost of a flight, but I think more people should do that. Get out there and meet your customers. Yeah. Like the first couple industry conferences I went to, several actually, it was all lobby time, and which was fine. Like I met with a lot of people in that case. So I think that's a pro move. You also came back to the theme here of focus. I'll just call that out again. You kind of burned the bridges here and said, no more other customers, no more services. And I think most of the companies I've invested in that have seen scale have had a burn the bridge moment where it's, hey, I have to kill this product or kill this customer segment so that I can get more focused. And I do think that's just not fully understood by most founders, that you're never too focused. Like there's just constant distraction. So you've kind of come back to that theme a couple times, and I think that's a powerful takeaway, is like focus wins.
100%. And I've made that mistake before about not focusing, and learned from it and wanted to try the exact opposite. The idea with the venture studio is we were so excited by all the possibilities that we could, spin up all of these different companies. But we weren't focused with that.
It's massively creative, right? That's a massively creative experience, but not focused.
And focus is like you need to be focused. You have to be. Running a startup, building a company is not easy. It is one of the hardest things that anyone who does it will probably do.
100%.
And it does require everything that you have.
Yeah, Frank Slootman was the CEO of of Snowflake for a long time, and previously a company called Data Domain. He has the expression. He wrote a book called Amp It Up. He has the expression, which I recommend to any founder here who's trying to scale a company. But he has the expression, narrow the focus and increase intensity. And I think that sounds obvious, but it's really hard for a lot of us to do. Yeah. You've talked a couple times about getting focused on the customer and understanding the customer. I'd love to hear you talk more about that. I mean, you've built a product specifically for a customer, like one customer persona, like one ideal customer profile, and then one buyer persona in that customer profile. What have you done to really get into the mind of the customer and like truly understand what's the job to be done here? What are the problems to solve?
That's a great question. I haven't really thought even to myself about specifically how to do that. It's a lot of times I just get very excited about the opportunity of what we could be doing in terms of like what value we could be bringing, and want to learn a lot more. So that's like, for instance, with the business here in Tucson, once we found out that they've been getting a lot of value from this, my wife and I, we just drove down there. We're like, can we just stay in your office for a day? We want to talk to everyone over there, see what you're doing, learn about your processes, and understand this better. And I also think there's genuine relationships you build with people in the industry, and they want to help you succeed too, because if a software company succeeds in an industry, is able to grow, then that helps them a lot more in the long run as well. Yeah. So I spent a ton of time talking to customers. That's probably, it's in not just prospects, like from a sales standpoint, just with existing customers, people who are excited about what we're doing already, and even prospects. There are a lot of deals that we closed where it wasn't like a direct intention to close a deal with them. It was just to understand their problems and solve it. We ended up doing that pretty quickly with our existing product, or with we launched another product recently with that as well, and then they became customers. But I think that also helps you build a lot of genuine relationships with them that are positioned to help them, and they want that, because especially with these kind of verticals, like these niches like the retirement plan TPAs, like I said, there's only a few thousand of these anyway out there. They don't get the attention. They don't get the love from other companies. So if someone is actually willing to work with them, they will give you a lot.
Yeah. I love that. There's this real juxtaposition of what you've kind of described here. On one hand, you're very focused. On the other hand, you're very curious, and you're taking in more and more information, and then the relationship development aspect with that too. So I think curiosity is like another founder attribute that when I do these interviews, it just shows up over and over. You have to be genuinely curious and inquisitive about what someone does, why they do it, how they do it, and then translate that into winning product.
Well, and I think that's what it is with focus. It's not about what you take in, it's about what you choose to do with it. Because if you're not curious, you're not getting the full picture. You're not getting information that could hugely benefit you. If you process the information and then decide that this is something you should ignore, and something else, this is what you should focus on, I think that's important. It's really important to understand how to do that.
We always cut up snippets from this. That's definitely a snippet on what you just said right there that we'll be cutting up. That's such a good insight. It's not just focus, but it's what you do with the information you take in. Tell me about how you stay in touch with your customers now. I think you have a customer advisory board. I'm always curious, when someone has a customer advisory board, how do you find the balance of taking information in from customers but not relegating your roadmap to them? Like, you can't give them your roadmap in total, otherwise your software becomes a bunch of custom like projects. So how have you managed to do that, like get full utility out of a customer advisory board without kind of giving up your control of your roadmap?
Yeah, that's a great question. And that's been a very interesting thing to navigate too, because there are some customers who are much more vocal than others. But what we've found out is that if we get the customers to actually talk to each other in the advisory board, that lets them debate a lot of these things among themselves and actually come up with what problems they want to see solved, or what are the next things that they want us to build. And another thing, especially with the vocal customers, we actually just ask them too, because if they come to us with a lot of different things, we just have them compare, try to prioritize it between themselves. We'd say, okay, if you want these functions, you're talking about this, and yes, we checked with a few other TPAs, they wanted to, we can build that, but with a limited team, we are still a startup. This means that these other functions that we talked about previously and agreed on our roadmap are going to be pushed back. Is it worth it? And then they've actually come back and said, actually, no, we're okay waiting a couple of years for this. It's not that important. These other functions matter a lot more.
That's such a great construct for prioritization and to drive like early adopter kind of engagement and connection. So I love that, getting your customers to speak to each other to help prioritize. So I love that.
Yeah, but even internally in terms of prioritization too, because there's so many things that anyone could be doing. That's, again, where focus is so important. You have to focus on what is going to bring the most value. And there's a lot of ways to define that value too. Increased ARR is one example, ROI, or risk mitigation. That's another really big thing that's difficult to analyze. But if you can come up with a framework of analyzing this and convey that as well to the people you're working with, like in this case, the customer advisory board, they understand our decision-making process and they accept it and they like us better for it.
That's great. Before we go to our closing questions here, you mentioned a new product you launched. I'd love to hear about that new product and what you're most excited about, like currently and in the future, for Stax AI.
Yeah, so we got into this industry by accident, by taking something we built for healthcare and making it work for the retirement industry. Now, that product itself was very generalized. It could apply to any industry, but it's how the workflows are set up and the templates are set up that are specific. One of the things that really excited me about this industry as well, and especially because it's a small, VCs consider it a small market. It's like a few $100 million, TAM. So it's not billion plus. When you look at it like that, you have to get creative with how you can leverage more of that industry. You have to figure out how you can sell more, you can solve more problems and build the TAM up higher. And so when we first talked to the industry, this was just one problem that happened to, be something big in the industry that they needed a solution for, but there were so many other things. And we wanted to build a solution for a problem as opposed to being a solution and finding a problem. Yeah. If that makes sense. Yeah. And so we spoke with customers. We spent a majority of last year trying to figure out what is the biggest value proposition we can bring to TPAs. How do we really scale up in the industry? And this is where we worked very closely with our customer advisory board. We did a lot of surveys. We did a beta program, and we tried a lot of functions. And it was really that the industry needed a true CRM, but something that is specific to them. So it's not just like Salesforce that's customized to the industry. There's a lot of additional things like how TPAs interact with their clients, who are called plan sponsors in the retirement ecosystem, how they collect data from them, integrations with payroll. That was something that there are companies that do payroll integrations, but before we got into this, no one was doing anything in the industry. Mm-hmm. So we saw that these were some key problems in the industry, and we found out that we could build a product that brings a lot more value to the TPAs, and that they actually agreed to, with LOIs at the time, pay about 6 times what they were paying for the other software for this new product.
Oh, wow. So
we built that and we launched that late last year. And that's we call it the CX product. It's for client experience, but it is like the operating system for TPAs.
That's awesome. One thing I'll kind of highlight that you pointed out, there are a lot of investors that, and I certainly fall into this sometimes too, but it's really easy to look at a market and feel like that market's just not big enough. But what you described is these end markets end up being a lot bigger. So low-level thinking would be, hey, let me take Stax first product and multiply that times the number of possible customers, like their current ACV times the number of customers, and that's what the market is, right? Or like the market potential. But what you just said is like when you really stumbled onto this new problem, it's 6x of what you originally thought. So I think these end markets, when you really go after purpose-built products that solve a very specific pain point for a set of customers, these end markets end up being way bigger than they first look.
And there's a lot of other things that are hidden too, because there may be other sources. It might be related markets or even connections to the market. I think if you build market dominance, there's a lot more you can do, and with the market growing as well. Like right now, there's about 800,000 retirement plans, but that's about 30 million employers. I think about 15 to 20 million are like solopreneurs or small businesses, but that's still 10 to 15 million that don't have retirement plans. this is a market that can expand quite a bit, but they are stuck with ancient technology, with limited resources and very narrow margins that are preventing them from expanding.
Yeah.
So if we can help them from going from the 800,000 retirement plans to the 15 million, that's a huge multiplier on the market as well.
Yeah, there's some number of customers for your customer that aren't profitable because they don't have the technology to do it, and your technology will make like what these current small customers for them become profitable.
Exactly. And there's also a lot of consolidation going on in the industry right now. There's a lot of private equity that's gone in, and larger TPAs are acquiring others. We've actually found that the acquiring TPAs love our software because they acquire TPA that doesn't use it, apply that on there, change their processes, and then make them a lot more profitable.
Love it. What are you most excited about in the future? And how will AI continue to evolve in a way that makes Stax AI even bigger and better?
The evolution of AI over the last few years has been incredible. And one of the big things is we've learned to not plan our roadmap too far ahead, because as things come up, there may be much better ways of solving problems than we really think about as we're designing this as well. So we focus heavily on the application layer of AI, on actually solving TPA's problems and using AI as just one of the tools to do it. Now, within our products, we do rely on it heavily because we've seen that it can help with a lot of these. However, if we don't have to use AI, we actually prefer not using AI. It's cheaper that way. In a lot of cases, it's faster and it's more predictable in that sense. What I'm most excited about is, at this point, I know this keeps changing, but I love what's going on with agentic AI right now, with the capability for it to perform tasks on its own, make the decisions with a lot of the connectivity and integrations with other systems. And this came up, I think, a few years ago with chain of thought reasoning, where AI just runs through the same prompts, comes up with a plan of how to solve a problem and goes through them individually. But when it's actually able to take actions, that becomes really powerful. And I think that is a fundamental shift in how software works and people can do business. The thing that I love about AI the most is that, let's say without AI, if you're building traditional software, you as a programmer will need to understand exactly how to solve a task, like how to perform a task, how to solve a problem, to be able to build software to do that. With AI, you don't need to, which means that you are bridging a massive gap between the ability to program and the ability to perform that task, like be part of the business.
I love that. Yeah, I love the focus on how do we solve end-to-end workflow for customers, and with where AI is going and be able to drive more agentic workflow here, you'll be able to move increasingly into the labor layer at your customers, which drives more efficiency for them and a better experience for their end users. So I love all that. And
an example, like in this industry, not even referencing us, like we do a lot of the stuff here like that, but there's a few companies that have spent 10 to 15 years developing compliance software for the industry. And they have to be very specific. They have to follow code very, very accurately. And it's complex. Now, they started, I think one of them was like 80s or even 70s, another one early 2000s when they built this out. And you can actually throw some of these spreadsheets of data that you get from clients into ChatGPT and ask it to run an ACP or an ADP test. These are kinds of compliance tests. And it's actually able to write the code to do it on the spot, execute the code, and give you the results. The fact that it took over a decade and they didn't need to spend that time on it, when they did build it. It is complex. But the fact that agentic AI can perform these tasks, write the code, execute the code, review its results, and go back and adjust in a matter of minutes right now, will probably be seconds in the next year or so, is incredible. Like the power of what this can do for any industry.
Love it. Anything we didn't talk about with Stax that we should have?
No, I mean, I'm here to answer any of your questions, help.
Well, good. Well, let's go to my closing questions then.
Okay.
2 closing questions. I'm always interested in what people are most thankful for. the happiest people I know are the most thankful people. What's something you're thankful for in the world? It can be anything.
Family. Hands down, I'm most thankful for my family. The amount of support now, both from my parents and also my wife and my kids. Most founders know this very well. Like, you are not going to be coming home on time, probably most days. I've had to pull so many all-nighters, and in our team too, by the way. But there's people on our team that I consider family. We work really, really hard, and for our family to understand that, support that, be excited by it as well, that's incredible.
This comes up most of the time when I do these interviews, and I truly, truly believe, because I'm married to one of these people, but I truly believe that the husbands, wives, partners of founders are uniquely special in their own, like to be willing to tolerate and support and deal with uncertainty, like financial ambiguity, like time, commitment, like uncertain outcomes. That is, I think they're truly special people. So I'm glad you shared that.
You're right. I mean, it does take a special person to marry a founder. But I think it goes beyond just tolerance. It's the support that's actually helpful. It's the amount of ideas my wife comes up with. And, she runs our marketing right now, partly, and she wants to be heavily involved too, is so invested in this.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, I love that. Last question. I'm not so secretly curating a list of the best places to eat tacos in Metro Phoenix here. Do you have friends or family that come to town, you're going to take them to get tacos or Mexican food somewhere? Where do you take them? I'm convinced the best Mexican food in the United States is in Metro Phoenix. So where do you take them?
Well, I have two places, but before that, I have to ask you something.
Okay.
I have heard a rumor.
Oh no, I don't like where this is going.
Did you put ketchup on your tacos?
That's so not true. I have no idea who said that. That's insulting.
Okay.
That is completely insulting. I was trying to think who
So you don't,
first?
Right?
No.
Okay, I can't reveal my sources.
I don't put ketchup on anything. Well, maybe French fries. But that's maybe the most offensive things anybody's ever said to me. And I can't remember who said it originally but no, if it doesn't make me sweat a little bit, it's not even considered hot sauce or anything like that. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, well, I hope you find out
the
who
rumor
said
is
that
false. The rumor is false.
So everyone knows this for sure. The rumor is false.
It's insulting.
Greg does not put ketchup on his tacos.
So your two favorite places?
Have you heard of Caliente?
Yes, that's come up multiple times. I haven't eaten there yet.
Okay, I love that place.
Okay.
And the other one, it's more Salt and Lime has good tacos. They have good food just all around.
Okay.
It's
Where's
more. This one is like Shea 92nd.
Sounds like a margarita place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's pretty good. It's great. But
it.
Caliente, I think that specifically, it's also very authentic, and they have more than just tacos. But
that's made my list. That's made my list like 20% of the time on these podcasts. Like that's a pro tip there. Hey, Naru, thanks for, first of all, congrats on the amazing story and what you're building at Stax AI, and congrats on all the progress, and excited to see your journey. It's been fun to get to know you a bit, and excited to see what's next with Stax AI.
I appreciate that. Yeah, and thank you for having me on the show.
Thank you.